and welcome to this episode of The Songs We Sang. I'm Sean Green. Many of our Barbadian folk songs not only told the story of our nation's past and culture, but they also revolve around many of our personalities of the past. And for that reason, many of these songs had dual names, one depicting their personality and the other telling of an event during that era, like this one.
Jine Brown, also known as Sweet Sweet Flying Fish and Cuckoo, tells the story of Jine Brown who had two suitors, and one of them presented her with a string of leather cord, which is apparently a type of fish. So she took the fish, she prepared the fish, and she gave him with some cuckoo. And he swore by that food that he will marry her.
Girding lemma touch a fing fing, girding lemma touch a fing fing, stopping fing and wear my ring. Darling, come and touch a fing fing, stopping fing, stopping fing, touch my fing fing and wear my ring. Sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, sweet, sweet leather coat.
So the original lyrics would have been sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, Jardine, I am married to you. But now we hear sweet, sweet flying fish and cuckoo, sweet, sweet flying fish and cuckoo, sweet, sweet flying fish and cuckoo, girly, I am married to you.
Sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, girly, I am married to you. Sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, sweet, sweet leather coat and cuckoo, girly, I am married to you.
Now that song was about a woman who could really cook, but this next song is about a female who really could not. In fact, she was so lazy she wouldn't even read a book, and for that she was sent packing back to her ma.
Jessie Mahon most likely was a real person. It is a situation where this young woman was very slow to learn to cook, because you know in the old days your mother used to make sure that you learn to cook, because that, you know, the way to a man's heart is through his mouth, or so they said. May not be so now, but she did not know how to cook, and so her intended just sent her back to her mother so she could go and learn to cook.
Jessie Mahon is the same thing as Pachi Bata Shima. The song is just highlighting the fact that Bajan men generally like women who cook and clean. And it is aimed at women who are lacking in both areas.
I think it's called Jessie Mahon. A pretty little girl like Jessie Mahon. Pachi Bata Shima. Pachi Bata Shima. Oh, Pachi Bata Shima. A pretty little girl like Jessie Mahon. Pachi Bata Shima. Right? Yeah, so that's one of those ones. And you'll find, Sean, from your research, if you go through enough for so a lot of them are about young women and giving advice to young women. In a way that we might see now from our eyes, given that we have now recognized different relationships between men and women, to be very controlling, to be very of that time.
A pretty little girl named Jessie Mahon, she lazy since she born. She can't cook and she won't read a book, so Pachi Bata Shima. Oh, Pachi Bata Shima. Oh, Pachi Bata Shima. Such a decent girl like Jessie Mahon.
As he said, she wouldn't even read a book. So even if she could read a recipe book, she wouldn't. So maybe, and in those days, there were no fast food restaurants. There were no places that you can go and buy food like that. So you had to be able to cook. So her inability to cook and provide her husband with proper meals caused her to be sent back home, to be packed back to Shima. Yes.
A pretty little girl named Jessie Mahon, she lazy since she born. She has full of gold and she can't wash a bowl, so Pachi Bata Shima. Oh, Pachi Bata Shima. Oh, Pachi Bata Shima. Such a decent girl like Jessie Mahon, Pachi Bata Shima.
There's one in Dominica, there's other folk songs too. In Trinidad, there's these folk songs always talking about young women. And Jessie Mahon is an example of that, of how people in that time, because a lot of these songs come from after emancipation, but before the influence of American popular music. So in that late 19th century, early 20th century period, we see how people viewed women and young women especially.
I would have learned that folk music is like the poetry of the working class. So as they worked, they came up with songs and so on. So it is possible that there was a Jessie Mahon who was sent back home because she was lazy and apparently uneducated, but she was pretty.
So Pachi Bati Shima, and then there are other ones telling women they can't cook and this, they can't look after their men. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that type of reprimanding young women, and not only in Barbados, but other folk songs in the Caribbean, we get those type of views and stuff as well too, where we hear these people trying to tell young women how to live their lives.
In fact, this Bajan folk song was not only popular here at home, but in other Caribbean territories as well, such as St. Lucia, where it was adopted and adapted by the island's National Youth Choir.
Right now. Such a decent girl like Jessie Mahon. Pack she back to Shima. Pack she back to Shima. Pack she back to Shima. Such a decent girl like Jessie Mahon. Pack she back to Shima.
This next song is called Da Cocoa Tea, and it describes the lengths that some women would go to garner affections.
The incident illustrated in this song did not actually occur, but there are many instances in our history where men would have been given a dose, which is basically some kind of tea with something in there that would have caused some serious side effects and ultimately death.
That cocoa tea, missy, is a poison to me. Every time I drink it, I don't know where I be. If you wanna find me, you gotta look for me, 'cause I got my head upside down with a cup of that cocoa tea. So basically that song is about a woman liking a man, and she wanna make sure that he stays. She's suspecting him of being cheating, and whether or not it's true, she goes and talks to the Obeah man, who gives her specific instructions, and she makes the concoction and gives it him to drink. Puts this thing that looks like cocoa in his cocoa tea, so he will not know the difference. But in essence, although the love potion works, the love potion makes him sick. So when he goes to the doctor, yeah, you've been drinking this particular substance and you are going to die.
Following on the theme of men and women relationships within a Barbadian context, this next song tells the story of a very public murder which occurred in a central Barbadian parish.
Oh, yeah. Dad? This my daddy. It's murder. Murder. Murder in the market. Murder. Dancing Thomas, she killed Babe Sonia. Murder in the market. Murder. Murder in the market. Murder. Murder in the market. Murder. Dancing Thomas, she killed Babe Sonia.
Well, I am told that it really happened in St. Thomas somewhere in the 1870s, I believe. And I am not sure why the lady killed poor Payne dead, but she certainly killed him dead. He was probably a cheat. I don't know why she killed him dead.
This folk song refers to an actual homicide which occurred in the central parish of St. Thomas in the 1870s. So it is said that this Bestie Thomas murdered her common law husband Thomas Paine.
Sometimes these songs are such sad occasions, and as usual, we sing this song with great gusto, you know, and especially the part when the woman says, I ain't kill nobody but me husband, as though he's property, and you know, she has the right to kill him if he doesn't do what she wants, you know. But it is a true thing you said, that sometimes we sing them without really thinking of the meaning and the sadness behind the whole event. Yes, behind the whole event. Some of them are very lively, and you can sing them quick and lively and so on, but that was another sad one. And somebody added another verse to it that I almost died with laughter when I heard it. It says, she lick him with the pot and the frying pan. She lick him with the pot and the frying pan. She lick him with the pot and the frying pan. And then she kill him. He had it coming.
I ain't killed nobody but me husband. I ain't killed nobody but me husband. I ain't killed nobody but me husband. So I can face the judge independent.
She ain't killed nobody but she husband. She ain't killed nobody but she husband. She ain't killed nobody but she husband. So she can face the judge independent. So it is murder in the market, murder, murder, murder in the market, murder, murder in the market, murder. Next to come and she can pay stolen.
Welcome back. Now, over the years, we've had several regal personalities visit these shores, especially from the Empire. However, in the early 19th century, we had an African king visited Barbados, and his presence here on the island created quite a stir with the masses.
But basically, King Jaja was an actual king from one of the countries in Africa. And he more or less stood up to the English, saying they're not doing something, and he was tricked, captured, and taken to the Caribbean. One of the places that he came to was Barbados.
King Jaja was born in Nigeria in 1821. He was a wealthy trader and the king of Opobo. He came to Barbados in 1891. He was exiled here because the relationship he had with the British fell apart. So he was exiled here. He spent 3 months here at Walmar Cottage in 2 Mile Hill, St. Michael.
It's about an African king who apparently fell in love with a housemaid. And from reading historical romances and things like that, that's a common trait that occurred.
King Jaja is said to be on, it's said to refer to this Yoruban royalty. He was actually Yoruban royalty who was forced to live in Barbados. It was a case of forced migration where he was now in Barbados, and it was actually, he lived there. There's actually a historical record of this happening.
King Jaja would have come to Barbados in 1891, so this was in the post-slavery, post-emancipation period. And I read that he was welcomed and he was a curiosity for the black masses. Now we're thinking about a society that was colonial, just emerging from slavery. Barbados especially, remember, was seen as one of the most brutal slave societies. And he was a curiosity and a source of some type of identity for the black working classes.
The authorities here were afraid of the influence that he had on the people.
His presence here drew a lot of attention. The masses, they were quite impressed that they actually got to see not only an African, but a black king. So it caused a lot of, they were very interested, and I think the then governor, I don't remember what his name is, he was actually concerned because they thought that, because they were so excited that you would have disturbances as a result.
He came to the Caribbean. Apparently, Jaja had massive estates, cocoa, and so on, and palm oil in Nigeria. And I get the impression from my research, and I did not research it deeply, but I got the impression from the research that I did that, and the readings, that the British wanted to take over a large section of the area where he had his palm oil and so on. He was sent to the Caribbean. I don't remember for what reason he was sent to the Caribbean, but I know he was in Grenada, and then he came here.
His trading empire was significant.
Yes.
And he had some conflicts with the British, and he had some meeting with the monarch. So that's how he was eventually kidnapped. They said, well, we'll go on a boat and meet the monarch. So as long as they got him on the boat, they transported him to the Caribbean, St. Vincent and Grenada, and eventually ended up in Barbados.
According to the lyric, the king met and fell in love with a Barbadian woman.
King Jaja won't let Becca alone. The historians, Trevor Marshall, Peggy McGarry, they couldn't find who Becca was. They know he stayed with a woman named Dovey, and she was, by all accounts, a upright, upstanding person.
And it's about this relationship with this Barbadian lady. So King Jaja will let Becca alone, so she was like, he wants a lady and that kind of stuff. So that's how it's portrayed.
I suspect that in that case, he got involved with her and she laid down the rules for him. And strange enough, you're talking to a king, but because he liked her so much, I don't think he even looked at her as a housemaid. He just figured, as a female, I love this woman, I like her a lot, or whatever. So
First, you hear about a Dovey, him having a romantic relationship with her, and then eventually you hear about a Becca. So I'm not sure if they are the same lady or if they're two separate women.
And once he was here, he apparently had some loving affair with some woman. Some people call her Dovey, and other people, there's another name, King Jaja. Well, Becca Lone. Becca Lone. I read somewhere that the local authorities were very annoyed because crowds of people used to go in the area where he was living. By Ilara Court, the other side of the road, there was a house there that he was in. And crowds of people used to go up there just to see this African man. And of course, these are people who are closer to Africa, and when I say closer to Africa, I mean in their mentality than we would be now, because don't forget, this is way back before slavery ended and all of that. Yeah. So apparently the local government and authorities were upset about the fact that lots of people used to go up there hanging around to see King Jaja, who was the king of the Opobo region in Nigeria.
To some extent, that kingdom still exists today.
Yes.
I was doing some research on it, so it's still there, and it's as a very prominent African. You could imagine how Black Barbadians at that time would have felt.
Eventually, he was quite ill, so because of his failing health, they allowed him to return to his native Nigeria, but unfortunately, he didn't make it back there. He died on his way back to Nigeria in July of 1891.
And when the British did take him from Barbados back to Africa, he didn't arrive. Apparently he was poisoned on the ship. So he died on the ship just a few days before he got to Africa.
Sad. Another sad one. But you see, again, there's a song that it was saying, King Jaja, well, let back alone, King Jaja. But people don't understand the intrigue behind the whole bringing of Jaja over to the Caribbean, what was happening back in Africa, and the fact that he never got back to his homeland.
The song itself ain't really about King Jaja. It was supposed to mirror the actual man-woman relationships of the time. We really think about it. The lady says, If you want to live in sin, get a little house and put me in. The boy says, or the man says, as you start to play the fool, I get a big stick and keep you cool. King Jaja won't let back alone. King Jaja won't let back alone. King Jaja won't let back alone. What back a gum is all she own. If you love me, treat me nice, and I will cook you peas and rice. Well, that's the lady. And the man just continued, well, as you start to play the fool, I get a big stick and keep you cool. So that was supposed to really reflect the dynamics of the time.
So we've looked at several Barbadian folk songs about the nation's past societies and personalities. And though we cannot cover each and every single folk song that there is, this next song can go down as arguably one of the most famous Bajan folk songs.
My favorite folk song is John Belly Mama.
Children are usually very excited about John Belly Mama. That's something that they're excited about.
Yeah, but I would say John Belly Mama.
Most definitely.
Yes, definitely.
Of course, John Belly Mama, because it was a vibe. So you like John Belly Mama?
John Belly Mama, which I find is a song that most children learn at that point in time.
I like when they say that she has a big belly and it was full with cassava.
But what do you think makes this Bajan folk song so popular with the children?
I think it's the movement. Given that it's a game song, I think it's the movement. I remember doing it as a child.
John Belly Mama is a very light one. Isn't it a very fun one for the children where they get to follow the instructions and go down?
John Belly Mama was a hit because it had all of the movements, and what I love about it is that it also integrates like landship movements, and it has history behind it, and it was just songs that we used to really enjoy as a child.
It says, come down. So I like that part because it makes me feel like people have to be winding down.
Right? Belly mama, belly spell with cassava. See they bring us on here. See they, Bessie, she bring us on here. Come down with the choir, come down with shoes and stockings, come down with your shoes, stocking, come down. We got that call and response section. That's where real actions happen, right? So call and response is a common technique in a lot of Western African music and music derived from that. You got it, Edmund's Pump Me Up. I like to use that example all the time. Pump me up with the music, pump me up with the music, pump me up, because you know I did it, pump me up with the music. And it goes back and forth like that. That John Belly Mama has the same thing. So come down with choir, come down with shoes and stocking, come down with Tuesday knocking, come down with trousers dropping, come down with choir, come down with shoes and stockings, come down with Tuesday knocking, come down with trousers dropping, come down. And that plus the movement makes that song have a lot of resonance.
Okay, well actually John Belly Mama was about this girl. She was in someone's cassava field. At that point in time, they were planting poisonous cassava, and she didn't know, and she stole it, and when she was eating it, it swelled her belly. So her belly was swollen, and obviously the poison was affecting her. And when she was stealing the cassava, she was stuffing it into her pants. So when you hear the tunies knocking and the trousers dropping, it was because the cassava was so heavy, it was weighing her down. And that is basically the history. It's about this lady who was stealing cassava, not knowing that it was at that time poisonous cassava.
Okay, so there are two interpretations for John Belly Mama. First one is that John Bailey's mother did not know the difference between sweet cassava and poisoned cassava. She ate the latter, and as a result, her stomach became swollen and puffed up. Yes, and then there's also the interpretation that she was pregnant, and like she was the subject of most people's conversations.
It is, I find that it is still relevant to our culture even now, because sometimes even now, like some people are already into agriculture and they have to worry about the stealing and everything, so it's still relevant in these times. And as I say, as I said before, I like how it really involves the movements. I find that landship is a dance that these children don't really know as well. So it's interesting to see when we have like the concerts and the parades and you see the landship. And we had one when we had our independence concert last year, and the children were so excited to see the landship, see the shaggy bears, and see Mother Sally. So they never saw anything like that before. So it was very interesting to see all of those movements that they were having, some of these songs and with these dances. So it was interesting for them to see. They were very, very excited.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Songs We Sang. I'm Sean Green. See you next week.